Close your eyes and come back with me to the year 2011. You're spending the night at a friend's house playing Beatles Rock Band when an idea crosses your mind.
I saw some really creepy videos on YouTube. You guys want to see?
Says Josh. Reluctantly, we come to the conclusion that since we are all in the same room for the night, it would be fun to try to freak ourselves out. And with that, we dove down the YouTube rabbit hole, eventually landing on the king of all internet creatures, Slenderman. But how did this faceless being become the face of internet horror? Find out! As we explore the story of the internet's greatest legend and the medium in which he grew from, Creepypasta and the Weird World. I can't say it.
Weird World of Slenderman.
We're gonna. It's a Slenderman and the Wild World of Creepypasta. That's the name. I don't know why I flipped it when I was writing it, but yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
Slenderman, the Weird World.
Slenderman and the Weird World of Creepypasta.
Got it.
So we were gonna just do Slenderman. Just to fucking get right into it. We were just going to do Slenderman alone, but it's really hard to cover Slenderman in detail without getting into what a creepypasta is. And I'm going to be saying creepypasta like mood hard today.
Creepypasta.
Creepypasta. That's what it's called. Creepypasta.
Creepypasta?
Yeah. Spooky spaghetti, as the kids say. That's what Last Podcast calls it. They have episodes and they call them Spooky Spaghetti.
Do they really?
They do. Yeah, they do. That's how I found Last Podcast, was from their first Creepypasta episode. I was searching creepypastas on the podcast app because I couldn't find any more on YouTube at the time because I was super fucking into them.
Yeah.
And I discovered Last Podcast, listened to There's Bones in the Chocolate, which is episode 34, and never went back. Anyway. This episode is going to be really juicy. We have very personal connections to Slenderman and creepypastas in general. We were both very into them for a while. Me more than you.
My name is Matt, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I didn't do an intro at all. Hello, my name is Andrew. Welcome to the I'm Not Crazy podcast. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it.
Gotcha.
I am your host, Andrew Venora. I keep just saying my first name. This is Matthew Provenzano.
Hello.
We're going to go with his full name, Matt Provenzano, Matthew Provenzano, whatever you'd like to call him.
Yeah, whatever you want to call me, man.
He's an accomplished blah, blah, blah. For the welcome to the show. Like Sean Evans. What do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah. If you had to like do something, what would it be? 1, 2, 3, go.
Chocolate.
Oh, man.
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk, extra sauce, because fucking toast doesn't put enough sauce in the milk.
That's right. Yeah,
you had an Andy Matthew day on Sunday. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Since we were kids, we've had it's Andy and Matthew.
Yeah.
And we've had Andy Matthew days.
Luckily, those videos have been unlisted on YouTube.
Yeah. They started as a video series and ended up as bonding days.
Right. Which I think is
we've
cute.
been doing it for a long time now. For like over 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than that.
Oh, yeah. Longer than that.
Since we were kids.
You're the opposite of Slenderman because you're large.
And you're the opposite of Slenderman because you're short. It works. If you put us together, you get the opposite of Slenderman in 2 ways. Short and fat.
That's love.
So, what do you got to say?
I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very excited for this story.
It's my home.
This is one that is very near and dear to both of our hearts in the same way Polybius was in the last episode.
It made my heart stop.
I don't know where to go from there.
I'm dead. What was the first time you heard of Slenderman at Josh's that night?
Yes.
That morning, I should say.
So we're gonna explain that whole story.
Yeah.
That's also where I learned about creepypastas.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into that.
Well, good way to start. Creepypastas are obviously the medium in which Slenderman became what he is today is through the medium of creepypastas. But what is a creepypasta? It's probably my least favorite term for something I really like.
Yeah, I have to agree.
I hate the name creepypasta. I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
It comes from the term copypasta, which was big back in the day. It was a block of text that you would just copy and paste somewhere, so it got the name copypasta because copy and paste. And this was creepy, so they just creepypasta.
And I would argue the term creepypasta caught on way more than copypasta.
Yeah, copypasta was like an old internet thing that faded out, but creepypasta persists to this day.
Yeah.
And it does come under different names, which we'll get into the evolution of creepypasta as we go. But more or less, they are internet stories, but we're going to get into them in more detail. So, you ready?
Yeah, rate and review the podcast.
Penetrate the like button with use your fingers, you know? Use your fingers. Like this.
No, don't show it. Oh, there's two.
Like that.
The like buttons are...
It's just 2 holes. I don't want dog voice.
Yeah, me neither.
Penetrate the like button with your fingies and make sure you like it, subscribe, write a review, please. Really, 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 please, please, please. If you're listening to this and you know me personally, write a review or I'll hound you in person. I feel the best place to start is to explain exactly what a creepypasta is, as it was for a while the sole way of reading about Slenderman. There was a time that Slenderman wasn't on the big screen, you know?
We're going to talk about that too, because
that's a funny story. I can tell it now. I begged Matthew to go see the Slenderman movie. I begged and begged and begged, and we finally went, and he was like, all right, I'll go see it. And we went. I fell asleep 15 minutes in, slept through the entire thing because it was so bad.
It was me, you, our friends Matt and Justin, and we all...
And Mike.
No, Mike wasn't there. And we all fell
Like when we saw Smash Mouth.
Like when we saw Smash Mouth.
In the morning.
And we all fell asleep in the Slenderman movie. And then halfway through, I woke up and I'm like, let's just get the fuck out of here. Let's leave. And you woke up and you went, no, Matthew, we gotta wait for Slenderman.
Yeah, and I slept.
And then I said, but Andrew, none of us are paying attention. And you turned to me and you went, Slenderman.
Fell back to sleep.
And we stuck through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen,
I think the worst movie that I've ever seen in theaters, other than that, was Poltergeist Remake.
When
we were actively screaming at the screen, laughing with everyone in the theater, like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun time.
It was 3D. We had goofy glasses and everything.
Yeah, you're right. It was 3D.
Yeah.
And that couldn't even save it.
No.
It was so bad.
I was so upset that we gave that our money. Because we wanted to see something else.
We had a great time.
It was a very good time.
Creepypastas are more or less digital campfire stories, for a lack of a better way to put it. And they're made to scare their readers, similar to a campfire story. They arguably date back all the way to 2001, with most agreeing that Ted the Caver is the first bona fide creepypasta. Here is a very condensed version of Ted the Caver, which is an example of a very high-level creepypasta, in my opinion. And now, I was going to get into like what it was and explain it more, and I just feel like this is just such an easier way of getting you into the world of creepypasta. Might as well just fucking experience one for yourself.
So, do you want to read a paragraph each?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that works.
Go ahead, you start.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Like we're in school. So this story is told on a Angel Fire website, which is a very old website hosting site, right? Website hosting server. Would you say Angel Fire? Is that the right terms?
Yes.
Server.
File transfer.
File transfers. They would set up the website and then put stupid things on it, and this is one of the stupid things that they set up. So this is about a guy named Ted and his adventurous unnamed friend, which we'll say is Bill.
Someone dedicated their entire life to making that website, and you boil it down to, they put stupid things on it.
I mean, for the most part, the website itself is extremely important to the growth of the internet. What was made through that website, for the most part, was stupid things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just thought it was funny.
It's like, I don't know, like accordions. You know?
Like accordions?
Big instrument. When was the last time you heard an accordion hit? It tells the story of Ted and his adventurous unnamed friend, who we'll call Bill. Bill and Ted. I thought that was funny.
That's funny.
As they explore a deep cave, told through journal entries on a random Angel Fire blog for cavers. Now, I wrote that, and I'm wrong. I'm going to correct myself immediately. That is not an Angel Fire blog for cavers. It was just a website they put up specifically for their own journal entries about caving. Okay. As they make their way further down the mysterious cave, that is just the end of that sentence. Okay. All right. After finding a tiny hole, the journals go on to tell the details of how the two made the hole larger and larger, trying to more or less fit in to get to the other side. There's a phenomenon called virgin caves that I found out, which is the idea of a caver finding a cave that no one has ever stepped foot in, and that is what they're more or less looking for when they go caving. Caving is a nightmare scenario for me.
Yeah.
I hate the entire act of it. I, in my opinion, fill it with fucking cement. I don't care. I don't care if it's trillions of years. I don't. Why are we doing that?
I recommend Internet Historian's brilliant fucking video about the man stuck in the cave.
Yeah, that story is so rough. So as they're digging, they mention wind coming out of the hole, which isn't necessarily uncommon, but they also mention a low rumbling sound, which they assume to be caused by the cars driving above them. Both of which were coming from the hole itself, not from around the hole, coming from inside the hole. After about a month or two of digging, the two started to see some serious progress, but eerily, the wind and rumbling had suddenly stopped, with the two indicating how strange it was, but they continued on anyway. Matthew.
Also, I'd like to say that I told Andrew before, but I've never read Ted the Caver. So I'm reading this for the first time. Suddenly, while digging, the two are startled by a shrieking scream coming from the total darkness, laying at the end of the hole. I thought you were going to play the Please don't.
Oh.
No, don't.
No, it's good. It's perfect for it.
Okay.
Yeah, Matthew doesn't do well with sounds that are sharp.
Like cheddar.
Like cheddar. I love it.
Ted shined his light down as far as he could, but saw nothing. After the initial fear subsided, the two started to think more logically, assuming an animal had gotten stuck in the hole. The two plugged the hole with rocks and gave it a few minutes, hopefully forcing the animal out of the other end. After no other strange sounds, the two continued on, finally making a hole just big enough for Ted to fit, as he was the smaller guy.
Yeah, Bill had, it was like me and you. Bill had what we call in the business fat.
He had fat.
I mean, he did.
He was a smaller guy. After some nightmarish cave crawling, Ted finally made it to the other end, with Bill sending his equipment in after him. Since Bill was larger and couldn't fit, they decided that Ted would go and explore for 30 minutes, and if he didn't return, Bill would go to the surface and get help.
As Ted made it further down the hole, it started to open up more and more, seemingly stretching on forever. Around this point, Ted comes across a perfectly round stone, apparently something rarely found in caves, especially dry caves with no water, which seems like he was in a cave with no water. If there's no water, there shouldn't be any erosion to stones, so the fact that it's a perfectly round stone, blah, 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 you get it. He enters the chamber with the mysterious stone, and his suspicions are confirmed as he finds clearly ancient cave drawings, depicting a few figures outstretching above their heads, seemingly praising the symbol above them. Ted made his way back to Bill, excitedly telling him what he had found, before heading back through the small hole, with his friend taking the picture that would become intrinsically linked to the story. They were then reunited, with Ted excitedly telling Bill he had photos of all the things he spoke about, with the two planning the trip back. Now, when he was coming out of the hole, he said that there were sounds of like growling almost behind him, but it lasted for such a little amount of time, he didn't even tell Bill about it. Matthew.
A few days later, the photos were developed, and Ted began to look through them, but noticed something odd. All of the photos up until he was in the chamber came out fine, but any photos taken in the chamber were completely black. Convinced the camera was screwed up, Ted went back, this time with a third friend named Joe, who was small enough to fit through the ancient cave. Joe was 7. But unfortunately, while climbing...
Joe collected coal.
Unfortunately, while climbing through, Ted's excitement got the best of him, and he slammed his head into the rocks above, clearly giving himself a concussion. Deeming it absolutely not safe to go on, Ted begged Joe to go and take new photos of what he had seen a few days prior. Joe obliged and made his way down the path, disappearing into the darkness. Ted and Bill...
I refuse to put Bill and Ted, I'm sorry, because then it's not a great adventure. Bill can't go.
Yeah.
So it's Ted and Bill.
Bill and Ted waited on the other side. But after 30 minutes, they heard nothing on the other side. They began to scream his name.
Joe! Joe!
When Joe finally appeared.
What?
The pair asked if he was okay, with him replying with no, before quickly making his way through the hole and out of the cave, obviously quite shaken. The two brought him home, where he would begin avoiding their calls and home visits.
After a month of building up the courage, Ted and Bill decided to go back, this time with a camcorder and a two-way phone given to them by, it was like a caver association.
Did you read the whole story in preparation for this?
Yeah.
Wow. How much do you... It's not to go
I read a lot for no reason at all.
I was going to say...
Oh, I didn't even get into the sources. Everything is online. There's going to be a full list of everything I used.
Not to get off topic, but did you think that before you read this today, or whenever you read it, that you can recall it in such detail after
I could 100% tell this story from memory at this point. Yeah.
So why did you read it again?
What do you mean?
Why did you read the story in preparation for this episode? Why did you read the story if you could just recall it from memory?
Oh, no. I'm saying from writing this, I've gotten the ability. Yeah,
okay.
No. I didn't really know the story much before.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. My brain just stopped. You
Sorry.
just shut it off with like a switch. Once again, Ted made his way through, with Bill nervously on the other side. He started to walk through the cave, which somehow seemed way darker than the first time. Ted recording the entire time. Why do I just write sentences that go nowhere?
Ted recording the whole way.
Recording the whole way. Suddenly, the sounds of rocks smacking each other came from behind him, causing him to, again, smash his head into the rocks above. This guy had a real bad problem when he got nervous of standing up in a really small cave. When he hit his head on the rocks above, this time he broke his headlamp. Now, in total darkness, he tries to take out a few glow sticks from his bag, completely horrified at what they might reveal. But once again, nothing was around him. He picks up the phone, and it was dead. With no other options, Ted threw a giant stick... I'm sorry, not a giant...
I'm gonna throw this giant stick!
In complete darkness.
This'll do it.
With no other options, Ted throws a glow stick into the room where the noise was heard. And the glow stick lands next to the strange rock from last time, rolls behind it, and the light totally disappears. And he is once again in total darkness, which makes no sense. The light, permeation. With all the light seemingly being sucked out of the room, leaving Ted in the horrifying blackness.
He cracks his last glow stick and makes his way back, again going through the chamber containing the weird drawings and stone, when he realized what he was hearing earlier.
The stone had been moved quite a distance, being used to crush and sever the two-way phone line, causing paranoia to watch over Ted.
I'm imagining all of this to be Ted Cruz in the cave.
Yeah, it's just the Unabomber just wondering what's going on.
He now knew he wasn't alone and was in terrible danger. He ran all the way back, sensing something was very close behind. He made his way through the hole, with strange sounds and smell coming from behind him. Once on the other end, the pair rushed up the rope they had used to get in the cave.
And you realize
now with something tugging the other end, trying to pull them back in, but they would escape.
In one last journal post on Angel Fire, Ted goes on to tell his peers about the nightmares and paranoia that have plagued him since. With his reuniting with Joe and Bill one last time to go and try to kill whatever was hunting them in the cave, Ted never posted again.
Wait, so Ted posted to Joe and Bill saying, "I'll be right back, I'm going to go kill the thing in the cave"?
No, so basically this whole thing happened. They didn't hear from Joe for weeks. They started experiencing nightmares and stuff. The way that the story tells is that Ted more or less just went to Joe's house and Bill's house and was like, "We got to go back." And they were like, "Yep." Like they just kind of all knew that they had to do something because they were all plagued with nightmares.
It's like Pennywise.
And then it's part 2. Only they don't win. Do they win in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that it's a long story. And again, it's condensed down a ton. This is maybe half of one of the actual posts. Yeah. I really, really condensed it down. But it gives you an idea of what we're working with. It's a story that is being posted by someone just named Ted. We don't know who that person is. We don't know who the friends are. Bill doesn't even have a name in the original story. Joe does, but Bill doesn't. There's weird things that can't be explained. There's no answer for anything. And everything is supported the entire time by photos taken by Bill.
Yeah.
That kind of gives context up until the creepy shit. And if you were reading that in the early 2000s and there was nothing like this out there, you would be scared shit. You'd be like, that's really terrifying. Now, looking back, it's like, it's a spooky story. Let's move on and, get some marinara. But, now, though this was long-winded, it gives a look into the few hallmarks that would influence the stories to follow in the early 2000s. It was an ongoing set of posts giving these stories the sense of realism, with the identity of Bill still a mystery. The story can never be formally disproven. Stories like Jeff the Killer, Candle Cove, love Candle Cove, 11 Miles Ritual, also love that, and eventually Slenderman would all use the anonymous nature of the internet, allowing the usual excuse of, quote, "this happened to a friend of mine," to transfer to "this happened to me even if no one believes me." It's a very specific thing, because anytime you would sit with friends and tell a story, it's always a friend of a friend, this happened, and it's easy to kind of like play it off.
Yep.
This is the guy that I'm talking to online is telling me this is happening directly, which is a big jump for the horror part of it. For the first time in history, the intimacy of a campfire story could be achieved through total strangers, allowing a totally new genre of horror to develop. This also allowed these stories to use websites, photos, and videos to their advantage, giving the story a distinct internet feel mixed with the already established world of found footage. So this was right after Blair Witch, which is not the first found footage movie, but the first big found footage movie.
Yeah.
I would argue Cannibal Holocaust is probably the first big found footage movie, thinking about it now.
When Blair Witch reached into the mainstream in a way that Cannibal Holocaust...
Yeah, Cannibal Holocaust, I think, only reached mainstream because of the court case.
Right.
But, yeah, so the subgenres are large and expanding rapidly. nostalgic video games or cartoons are often the target of creepypasta, like the really dumb Squidward suicide or the still pretty creepy Ben Drown. The footage from Ben Drown is there's a weirdness to it because it's an N64 game. It already looks primitive and fucked up.
Yeah.
And having the glitches that someone programmed and made.
It's easy to mod a game. It's not easy to mod a cartoon show.
Yeah, so Squidward suicide, me and Matthew have had this joke for 15 years about hyper-realistic eyes and blood coming out of the hyper-realistic eyes. It's a trope of cartoons. It's always, and then Mickey had hyper-realistic eyes, and it's like, why is that scary?
And the creator, he would shake when you would bring it up, and he would try to shy away.
I don't want to talk about that. That's what Steven Hillenburg said, the creator of SpongeBob.
There was a
rest in peace.
There was a Q&A, and someone said, "Can you tell us about Squidward suicide?" And he went, yeah, and then he walked away.
He had an aneurysm. Again, may he rest in peace. Modern creepypasta is seen in the YouTube trend of analog horror. That's probably the place that you'll find a creepypasta-like story.
That's where it lives now.
Yeah, 100%. The Backrooms is the perfect example of how quickly a decent story could spread as the audience is basically never ending. There is such an incredibly large audience for internet horror that you could put out absolute shit like Jeff the Killer. Terrible story. The original story of Jeff the Killer, I explained it to you the other day, is like if you take the book The Outsiders and put it in a really nice suburban neighborhood, but all the kids are in street gangs and they like to throw bleach on each other. Yeah. It's a really strange story. Also, does bleach burn like gasoline?
No.
Because they throw bleach on it and then light him on fire. And I just feel like that's not how that works.
Well, the fire part would melt his face, but not the...
No, but would he stay on fire?
I don't know.
I don't think any liquid that's not water is flammable. So, there are so many great creepypastas that get... Oh, sorry. Sure. Sorry.
Before you get to that, I think we should explain Backrooms for anyone who doesn't know that.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I just assume everyone knows, but not everyone's tuned in.
While you're doing like the semantics, like I also don't know what Squidward suicide is.
You never heard of that?
Oh, Squidward suicide?
Do you have that anywhere else in the script? Do you want to explain that?
Nah, we could explain it here.
Okay, yeah. So before we move on, let's explain Squidward suicide and the Backrooms.
Okay.
So there was, things like Squidward suicide and Dead Bart. You ever hear of Dead Bart? So there was, it was just basically, all of it was the same. It was a trope of a cartoon show, and there was an old lost episode that the creator made that was just, that he made for some weird haunted reason, and whenever anyone would bring it up, he would just shy away from it. But then, like, someone would corner him and be like, could I have a copy of it? He's like, all right, here's a link, but don't tell anyone. And it was just
Random
an episode...
person at a convention.
Yeah. And it was like an episode where everything appears normal, but then shit goes wrong, and then there's screaming in the background, and then Squidward looks up at the camera, and his eyes are hyper-realistic. And they're bleeding, and then he pulls out a gun and shoots himself, and then fucking in Dead Bart...
SpongeBob and Patrick are just crying over his grade.
And it's like a real octopus.
It's not school. And it's a real octopus, yeah.
It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, at the time, though, the videos were genuinely scary.
Yeah.
We watched them as teenagers, and they were frightening because nothing like this existed as of now that we knew of.
Yeah, and Dead Bart was basically the same thing, except it ended with them visiting Bart in the cemetery, and he was just a real ass yellow human that was dead. And the rest of the gravestones in the cemetery were celebrities that were guests on The Simpsons, and they predicted all of their deaths, like Michael Jackson before he died and all of that. Really, really stupid. And then,
and that one plays on the trope of The Simpsons being like a fortune-telling show, because they said like everything happens on The Simpsons first, then it happens in real life, which, when you have 55 seasons of a show, that tends to happen. Every scenario gets explored, but, and then, it is what it is.
And then really, really quick, The Backrooms is...
The Backrooms is easy.
Yeah, it's like the newest YouTube. You want to explain it?
Yeah. The Backrooms is the idea of basically like if you know what no clipping in a game is, when you you fuck up and you accidentally go through like a place that you're not supposed to, and you're just falling in a void, or you find a room you're not supposed to. The idea is that there's a glitch in the universe as a whole, which causes these backrooms to appear, and you could fall into them by mistake. So, in the original video, kid's playing with his friends at a parking lot, trips, and then he gets up and he's in the back rooms. Yeah. And it's really well done.
It's really well
creepy. And it's... I don't have the patience to do it anymore, but I would still love to like get more into it and figure out what's going on. I just don't have the patience to do it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of research
pushing
and
30.
keeping up to, and I'm pushing 30. Exactly. I just wrote an entire episode about Slenderman. That's enough. But yeah, the creepypastas have this... rightfully so name of being really bad and really shitty and bloated and very predictable.
It's like the deviant art of writing.
Yeah, but there were really good ones, just like in DeviantArt. You'll find fucking pictures. I don't know.
A good My Little Pony instead of a bad one.
Yeah, it's a good man, so good. There are so many great creepypasta that get overlooked due to the sheer amount of stories. The average quality of creepypastas, like I said, is generally very low, admittedly, with most of them being predictable and uninspired. But these stories would evolve into things like R No Sleep, which is the Reddit creepypasta site more or less, and 4chan's Paranormal Board, which when these two were rocking, doing their thing, they were pumping out like genuinely really good content. I remember you had a tradition of every year you'd go and look at the top No Sleep posts, and then you would ask me if I read them, and I would say yes, and we'd talk about them.
Every month.
Every month. Every month. Yeah,
I would do it when I was working in the city in 2019.
Yeah, at the time I was doing taxes. Just learned something about me today, and now I have a podcast about monsters. I was doing taxes, and this is what I would do because I hated doing taxes. I would read these stories.
Those poor customers.
Yeah, no, I did their taxes well. Stories we had told each other over the years that came up were stories such as the story of her holding an orange, which was fantastic.
It was a legitimately good story.
It was legitimately great. Correspondence, which was really good. The showers. Do you remember the showers?
No.
The showers was the one of the teacher telling the kids the story about how his friends went on a road trip and found that like weird shower with the pig in it. Crazy.
Don't remember.
Back in the day, it was one that scared you genuinely. I remember it clearly. It was like you called me like freaking out. I was like, yeah, no, I heard that one. It's scary. And Psychosis, which is probably my favorite. Psychosis
don't
is...
skip over Feed the Pig. Feed the Pig is a good one.
Feed the Pig. Oh, man, what a fucking... Feed the Pig, I remember listening to it. I called you. I said, Matt, you got to listen to the story. And you were like, I don't know. And I was like, you got to listen to it. And you called me back. One. You were like, holy shit. It's a guy... basically, the idea is that if you kill yourself... Pussy... If you kill yourself, there's a chance that you go to this realm that's kind of not purgatory, heaven, or hell. It's this other place totally, and it's this fucked up dimension with all these weird creatures. Like one of the creatures, this is exactly how they describe it, has a drill for a cock, and when he masturbates it, ticks fall out.
And that's how the story starts.
That's how the story starts. It's really fucked up. It tells the story of a guy. I'm not going to ruin the ending because it's unbelievably good. But if you get a chance, go read Feed the Pig. It's fantastic.
It would make an amazing short film if someone already hasn't done it.
It's an easy thing to do because it takes place in mostly one room with two people.
You just need a giant pig.
Yeah, you just need a giant pig. So these are just a few examples of really well-made horror using the internet in a way that made them feel very original and fresh, even if they were touching on century-old motifs. I use the word motifs in here today. And now with all of that being said, an over-detailed explanation of what a creepypasta is now over. And we are going to get into the king of them all.
SpongeBob.
Slenderman.
Slenderman.
Squidward. No, Slenderman. The next part of this is called Something Slender.
Oh.
So goofy. All right. On June 10th, 2009, the user...
That's when it was?
2009. I was a freshman in high school. Crazy. You were in 8th grade.
I was graduating.
You
St.
were
Morgan Mary.
Yeah, you were.
Elementary school.
On Staten Island, New York.
8th grade.
Yep.
It's crazy.
10306.
5.
6.
That's like
All right. On June 10th, 2006, the user Victor Surge would post onto a message board called Something Awful. The thread had been littered with badly photoshopped ghost pictures and UFOs to see who could come up with the scariest photoshopped image. And without a doubt, Victor won that contest. There's no contest even. Victor destroyed that contest. He would go on to post 2 photoshopped images of children playing. In the background was a tall figure seemingly wearing a black suit. It had no face and many tentacle-like arms coming out of its back. Under the photos read the following. We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. And that was quoted from Photographer Unknown, Presumed Dead, in 1983. How did they get the quote?
Can I read the next one?
Yeah.
One of 2
No, you can't read it. One of 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library blaze, notable for being taken the day in which 14 children vanished, and for what is referred to as the Slender Man. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. I'm going to assume the picture fucked up. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photography confiscated as evidence. This is 1983. The photographer, name is Mary Thomas, was missing since June 13th, 1986. And with that, the thread exploded into the community, immediately contributing their own photoshopped images with new lore about missing children, and this enigmatic figure quickly being dubbed Slenderman. Although Tall Man was used on the thread a lot in the beginning.
That's fine.
Tall Man is pretty much synonymous at this point. There's a movie called The Tall Man, very obviously based off of the Slender Man legend, which turned out to be a person. It's a terrible movie, don't look it up. But yeah, the idea of Slender Man grew within 3 days. It was fully fleshed out. All of the extra lore that we know of him being like an old Germanic figure and all that, it's all made on this thing here. It's all photoshopped images made to put him in that then just got carried away later on. Mm-hmm. People started posting to websites like Snopes, asking for more information about this Slenderman entity, seemingly either unaware or purposefully ignorant. This spread to other corners of the internet, causing two things to happen. One, more people started to post about him outside of the thread. And two, the origins of the creature became blurred. And with this, the little Photoshop contest birthed the next wave of internet horror. And then enter Marble Hornets. I did not know that Marble Hornets, the original post was June 10th. The first video was June 20th. 10 days after the inception of Slenderman. Did you know that?
No, not at all. And
how crazy is that?
Wait, so this guy posted the Photoshop Slenderman picture on Something Awful. Mm-hmm. 10 days later.
10 days later.
The Marble Hornets thing comes out?
Yep, it's released.
How
June
the fuck
20th,
is that
2009
possible?
is the first video.
That means that they...
The first video, to be fair, is like 50 seconds long.
I guess you're right.
So they just made like a quick thing. And the first couple of I watched probably the first 30 videos while doing this just in the background. Most of the early videos are very short.
I don't know what the distance was between the amount of time between each episode was released.
Days, sometimes hours.
Okay, so it
was very consistent when it was happening.
And probably very easy to shoot because...
yes. Yeah, well, we're going to get into that a little bit.
Okay.
Just 10 days after the legend would start, like I said, Troy Wagner would go on to create a video under the name Marble Hornets. He released it on YouTube and linked it onto Something Awful, where he had actually been active during the entire Slenderman inception. Not only were these videos something he made, but he contributed to the Photoshop contest. He was making shopped images of Slenderman.
That's really
which is really cool. So, like, Troy Wagner isn't just some guy that bit off the original idea. He's like a real contributor to the legend. I would say more than fucking whatever the guy's name. I forgot his name. It'll come up later.
He's like the most important, not important person.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And he royally fucked it later, which I don't really think it's his fault, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
These videos would take the culmination of the lore by this point and expand on it heavily, adding new characters. There was multiple channels. There was secret messages that you had to find. It was like one of the first really big ARGs. It definitely was not the first, but it was the first one that really like captured children on the internet.
Yeah.
And now we could tell the infamous story of me and Matthew and the sleepover at Josh's house, which is what started, I would argue, we talked about this the other day, it really had an effect on both of us, that a lasting effect in how we are as adults now with what we enjoy horror-wise and all that stuff.
Just one night.
Yeah, one night, and technically, like you said, it wasn't even the night, it was the morning after.
One sleepover could change everything.
Yeah.
You know,
stay over tonight.
For better or for worse. Don't wink at me.
So basically we stayed over our friend Josh's house. Shout out.
So we're telling the story now?
Now's the time.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just let's try to both add our anecdotes as we remember them, right? Mm-hmm. You ready?
Hell yeah.
So I'm gonna tell you exactly what I remember. The year is 2011. Can you put some scary music behind me?
Sure.
Thanks. The year?
Yeah, for us, everything stayed the same. Okay.
The year is 2011.
Okay.
Sonic Generations just came out that day. Me, you, Frank, Pat, and Josh.
Shout out Josh Attilly, Pat Kevorkian, Frank West. They all are fine with me saying their names.
We slept over Josh's house, and like you guys were juniors in high school, I was a sophomore, so I always thought of myself as just your cousin tagging along, but they were still my friends.
Yeah.
And I knew they cared about me and I cared about them. It doesn't matter.
And now just a little context also, Josh's house has always been a source of creepiness for us, even before the Creepypasta stuff. Was that your first time staying over?
Yes.
Okay, so this was not my first time, and we always said the house was super creepy. Basically, how it is you walk in and there's a dining room on the left side, and then the living room is attached to the back. But there's this side room that's all the way to the left, and it's this little hallway, and it's like a mock library. And for some reason,
I just got chills as you're describing
this room is so fucking creepy. Like, just sitting in the room is weird. Even Josh says to this day it still creeps him out for no reason.
I can't do it.
The bathroom has a window in it that has nothing. It's just a wall behind the window. It's just overall really fucking weird and creepy. And that bathroom was the fucking crux of hanging out at Josh's house. When you needed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you just waited until the morning because you were afraid of the bathroom.
Yeah.
Or someone would bring you to... We would go to the bathroom in pairs. Yeah. That's how
High
afraid
school
of... Shout out to
boys.
all the pairs. It's a Rick Ross joke. High school boys were taking each other to the bathroom because it was so scary to go in that bathroom alone. Just context.
And the living room where we would watch TV and play video games was not only huge, but the ceiling was so high above you.
The TV was this big.
Yeah. That none of it felt real. It felt like you weren't in a house, but you were in like a church.
It's like a dream.
So, okay, we slept over. His parents said goodnight. We said goodnight. They went upstairs. Now it's just the five of us. And it's, well, I don't know, 11 p.m., like nearing midnight. And like, we're about to go to sleep. And that was the first time I ever heard the term creepypasta. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that you guys already were knowledgeable. And that night, we watched all of the essentials. We watched Dead Bart. We watched Squidward's Suicide. We watched Suicide Mouse.
Suicide Mouse. That's one I wanted you to explain.
It's a loop of Mickey Mouse walking down the street, and he looks sad. And he's looking
hands in his pockets, head down.
Yeah, and there's like creepy piano music playing in the background, and then the footage distorts, and then it's like an 11-minute video of just a single loop, like a 3-second loop. And the second half of the video is a blood-curdling screaming of a woman and we watched the whole thing
just like this.
And I was on the chair going, "Turn it off!" I was getting mad. I was like, "Turn it off!"
Yeah.
So we watched all of that. We had ourselves a good little scare.
Yeah.
We fell asleep at maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning. We had a good sleep. We woke up. Now there's light coming in Josh's big house. And Josh says, "Have you ever heard of marble hornets?"
And now, beautiful sunny day outside. His mom, I'm pretty sure at this point, already made us we already ate breakfast.
Yeah.
Or we were waiting for breakfast. And we were sitting on the couch. Yeah, it was fantastic. It was like a fucking cartoon breakfast. It was nuts. And then we were sitting on the couch. And I remember we're all sitting there like, not cuddled together, but all on one couch looking at the TV, genuinely fucking shitting our pants.
Horrified.
Because Marble Hornets now... It's been done so many times better.
It also looks a little silly looking
back
at it.
It's really silly and it's really stupid. But at the time, there was the mystery, like I said, of we didn't know who the fuck was posting it. We didn't know if it was real or not.
Yeah.
We weren't sitting in a movie theater like you said the other day with, what movie is it?
Paranormal Activity.
With Paranormal Activity, there's the element of realness, but you're sitting in a movie theater. So there's like, you paid to be there.
Yeah, you still know it's fake.
You still know that you're there watching a movie.
Right.
This was, we were just sitting in your house. I could post a video on YouTube of me stabbing someone until someone realizes what it is. It'll stay there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where we were at that time, was you could put whatever you wanted on YouTube, and until someone noticed, it stayed there, and you just kind of hoped that people would find your shit.
And I don't know if we genuinely believed it was real.
I think we were all like pretty freaked out because the first like 20 videos are really weird, and they don't give you a lot, so it very easily could be real.
There's so much mystery surrounding it at the time anyway.
Yeah. It could just be a mentally ill person making videos, and that's what was kind of interesting, is that's the play on it.
Right. And so we watched about maybe 30 episodes, like the really, really good scares were in the first 30 episodes. And then we said goodbye. Everyone left Josh's house. We all went our separate ways. My mom picked me up. I went home. I played Sonic, the new Sonic.
Sonic Generations came out that
Sonic Generations came out that or the day before.
Day before, yeah, 10 years ago.
And then night fell.
Josh just texted me. It's so weird.
Did he really?
He just texted me.
Oh, I hate that. So I was playing Sonic Generations. It was now night, and I was maybe like 16 years old. I had never in my life, and still to this day, I've never been that terrified as I was that night, because I was just so freaked out and shaken by Slenderman and by Marble Hornets. And I was so legitimately scared that when I was trying to go to sleep, first of all, I didn't get any sleep that night, but I was so scared that I was legitimately considering going to get my mom.
Yeah, I remember you
That's
telling
how
me
scared
that,
I was.
like, not too long after, and that was really interesting.
That I got up out of my bed.
It scared the fuck out of
and
us.
put my hand on the doorknob like, I have to get my mother. I'm just so fucking... I was a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, and then Slenderman put his hand on your shoulder and said, go back to bed.
Yeah, it's
and you were
okay.
like, oh, my bad, I'm sorry.
Because there's shots in Marble Hornets of not only Slenderman, but this other masked figure.
That's what I was going to say.
Standing on the bed. And
Yeah.
just that image is so toe-curlingly horrifying.
Yeah. There's a video of the
changed me.
dude, the main guy. His name is Jay.
Jeff? I think it is Jay.
Jay Merrick. And he's in his bed, and he put a camera up because he said things were moving. When he'd wake up, things were like in different places or things were taken. And he puts a camera up, and he realized that someone has been staying in his room with him the entire night while asleep, just watching him sleep. And he's tossing and turning, and every time he moves, the guy moves somewhere else. Really, really fucking creepy. But yeah, this Marble Hornets is the whole reason we're doing this episode really at all. It's just, this is what I look for. Now, I still look for something that scares me the same way this did, and nothing has ever come close because it was just a moment. There was more to it than just the content.
Yeah.
It was the whole package of the whole thing.
I think the closest is Back Rooms, but it didn't scare me. It was
Just
impress me.
fascination.
Yeah.
Like, as a kid, I have 3 things that scared me really bad that I can remember. It was this.
Can I guess one of them? Was
yeah.
not Friday the Nightmare on Elm Street. It was the coming out of the wall.
So
You couldn't take showers?
No, you're mixing up 2 things. So one of them was Jason X, which is a terrible movie. It's the 10th Friday the 13th movie. And he stabbed someone through a wall, and the wall is metal. Okay. So when I would take showers against the door because I was afraid to go against the wall because I thought I was going to get stabbed. And then the other one, which is a lot easier to explain away because I'm not in cemeteries every day, was in New Nightmare. There's a scene where Freddy pulls her into the casket, and those 2 scenes fucking scared the shit out of me. And I didn't feel that type of fear again as an adult or young adult as I did with Marble Hornets.
Yeah, now we fear actual shit like going broke.
Now I fear floods. So the story follows Jay Merrick, a college student who was helping his friend Alec Crowley. I don't remember that being his name, but that's his name. Shoot a student film called Marble Hornets. The actual film itself doesn't really make too much of a difference. But after 3 months, Alec cuts off all contact with everyone involved, leaving Jay with all of the uncut tapes. I don't know why. I was going to make a circumcision joke, and I don't really uncut. The videos are him making sense of the tapes and trying to farm a cohesive story while slowly being haunted by various things, including, you guessed it, Slenderman. But in this story, they call him the Operator.
He's never called Slenderman.
It's like zombies in The Walking Dead.
And it's a very different Slenderman than people are used to. There's no tentacles.
The tentacles do come later in the series. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And,
the later series melds the newer lore with it.
and even though some of the effects are really bad and they basically just pour ketchup on their face as like blood, it's really stupid and silly. The way that they show Slenderman is legitimately effective because they don't... It's so quick and it's so in the background and it's like juxtaposed with a loud noise or a glitch in the video, and it's worked to this day. It's still, I think it works very well.
Yeah, I watched it the other day, and there was one where he's in the playground and he's looking around, and every once in a while Slenderman will run on the side.
Yeah.
And one of them is very clearly a guy in a suit just running, just like running, and it's really actually very funny. But
Fair enough.
And let me tell you, at the time of release, these were unbelievably scary for young Andy and Matthew. We said this earlier. It was shot like Blair Witch, but because it was not in a movie theater and instead on YouTube, the realism skyrocketed. We genuinely couldn't convince ourselves it was 100% fake back in 2011. And that scared me in a way that I've been chasing since. The series would continue, gradually getting worse, before everyone involved revealed themselves and crowdfunded the 3rd season, essentially shattering the mystique that made it special. No shade at Troy, but it was doomed to fail as the demand for more grew. It was more or less going to collapse on itself. All right, we had a little bit of a mishap, but we back up in this bitch.
So
this is going to be a long episode. We just had a conversation about splitting it into 2, but we're not gonna. This is just going to be a really long episode about fucking Slenderman. So,
what the fuck were we talking about?
Marble Hornets. We got to the end of it. More or less how it's
oh yes, okay.
Troy ruined it by it got too big. The demand for it grew. People wanted more, but it's really hard to make money off of something when no one even knows you're the person making it, other than the people involved. So it was doomed to fail if it was to continue and try to make any money at all, which no shade at them. Again, they've made art for 3 years. They want to make money off it. There's nothing wrong with that.
They had no obligation to continue that.
Exactly. And they did make their money. Good for them. In the process, destroyed an internet treasure, but they made their money, so I'm happy for them. No shade at Troy.
I don't think they did anything wrong.
Fucking Troy ruined my Slender. One of the major things to help cement the legend was its ability to insert itself into legends going all the way back to the 1600s Germany. They traced it all the way back to 1600s Germany, claiming that due to its faceless nature, any tall black figure in history was automatically deemed to be Slenderman, and it was then added to the canon. The stories of the child's victims grew the child victims grew, not the child's victims. The children didn't murder anyone that we know of. Well, the story of the child victims grew, with Slenderman eventually becoming the explanation of the age-old boogeyman, according to the lore.
We've finally done it. We're talking about the boogeyman.
Yeah, this is this Slenderman somehow got inserted all the way back to these ancient Germanic Black Forest being things that were supposedly haunting the Black Forest, and people inserted Slenderman. It is all bullshit. It all comes from something awful within the first 10 days of its inception. Every single piece of lore that we know of, the history-wise, all comes within the first 10 days of Slenderman being made in 2009. It's kind of nuts. The creature is creepy, weird, and most importantly, vague. The vagueness of Slenderman led to a laundry list of different abilities, motives, and historically accurate accounts of Slenderman, as stated earlier. So in this part, we are going to go over his abilities, and this is direct from the Slenderman fan wiki, so you know it's 100% fact and not written by a 14-year-old freshman somewhere in Ohio. You ready?
Yeah. Hold on, a potato.
That's Idaho.
No, it's Ohio.
Number 1, slender walking. This is the name given to the thing that Slenderman does, which isn't walking.
These are his powers?
Yeah. Isn't walking. He doesn't walk. It's really stupid. They call it slender walking, but it's just not. The ability to appear or disappear from any location at will. This is easily Slenderman's most famous trait, but the reason for this ability is a total mystery. All matters of explanation have been given, including demonic powers, alien technology, quantum physics, and everything in between, and not a single one of them makes any semblance of sense. Because things can't teleport, turns out.
Right.
The Endermen in Minecraft are based off of the Slenderman, and that's why they can teleport.
There it is.
Number 2, camouflage. Again, this is a very famous... I keep putting how famous these abilities are, but they're all really famous. So I'm just going to keep saying it every time. Again, this is a very famous ability of the Slenderman and pretty much self-explanatory. Though his arms may help him blend in with trees, the bright red tie he later developed couldn't have helped him, considering trees don't wear ties. Never mind a bright red one.
You wrote that down.
Number 3. Mind control / telekinesis / 18 other fucking things.
One of the many things Slenderman has in common with Donald Trump is the red
camouflage.
The red power tie.
Oh.
Yeah.
These are also fairly self-explanatory, mind control and telekinesis, though it is worth noticing that the wiki page has the same ability under an absurd amount of names, such as Slender Sense, mind control, impersonation, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, pain reduction, prolonging death, and selective visibility.
It's like we're talking about a Pokemon.
Basically, these boil down to one thing. He has full control over what you see, hear, feel, and think. Easy. Number 4, weather manipulation. This one's hilarious. The idea is that when Slender starts stalking you, he could change the time of day and things like rain and fog to enhance your sense of fear and helplessness. And this comes specifically from the game Slender, which they have made a game mechanic into an ability of Slenderman. To just be like, well, it's foggy, so the render distance is less in real life.
I didn't know that.
No one did. Virokinesis. This one is the coolest one in my opinion. This is kind of original to him from what I know of. AKA the sickness. Ooh, wah! All right, because we're down with it. Right. This is probably the most interesting and unique ability of the Slenderman. That was pretty good. Attributed to him being a fourth dimensional being, it is said he has the ability to make you sick with symptoms such as coughing, and these gradually go very, very crazy. Coughing, fevers, disorientation, vomiting, blacking out, and bleeding from your nose, mouth, and eyes. These also happen to just be symptoms of Sigma radiation poisoning, leading the writer of the wiki to believe that he could radiate at will with enough energy to give you actual radiation poisoning. So that's a thing about the stories that's interesting, and that's kind of an original. I've never really heard of anything that isn't like the Toxic Avenger giving you fucking radiation poisoning.
Right.
If you've never seen that movie, go check it out.
Yeah.
It's Trauma. It's really bad. Me and Chris watched the first 15 minutes of it, and he was enthralled and then never asked me about it again after we were going to watch it. So if that gives you any indication. And then lastly, tentacles. He is said to be able to grow an indefinite amount of, quote, seemingly powerful tentacles from his back, using them to grab and restrain his victims.
So, can I be honest? I don't like Slenderman with tentacles.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I feel like the tentacles cheapen it.
Yeah.
You know? It makes it into like a Cthulhu thing.
That's not...
The wiki says that the guy's influence for writing, I'm just going to read it because it's the influence for writing it is just every famous fucking horror thing ever.
Yeah.
There's a list given and it's like Cthulhu, like any of the horror monsters. Like it's just a laundry list of things. And it's like, yeah, it's inspired by that. It's just Cthulhu, but with a tie. It's the exact same monster. It's just creepy. It's forever there. It's trying to later on in the story, more or less get disciples or proxies as become famous. And it's just fucking Cthulhu. It's just Cthulhu. The tentacles don't help.
What's the point of Slenderman? Meaning, what is his purpose? Does he eat people? Does he get power?
Man.
Is he trying to take over the world?
What a fantastic segue into the next step. The stabbings. The lasting influence of Slenderman. We're going to get into what exactly Slenderman is and why he exists in this moment in time. And this has been pretty prevalent since the stabbings. Mm-hmm. I keep wanting to say murders, but thank God the girl did not die. So it is thankfully just stabbings and no murder, which it's traumatic enough. But
it would be more in poorer taste if there actually was a murder, but luckily there wasn't.
Yeah. She lived, and it's all fucking unbelievably brave girl she is.
Those kids are in jail, I assume.
Yeah, the whole thing is really sad, but okay. Unfortunately, this is part of the story where we talk about the stabbings. Now, as the Slenderman story spread and developed, a new twist to the story started to come into the stories. I don't know why stories. The idea of Slenderman having proxies seems to stem from a collection of stories called the Blogosphere, establishing ranks for the proxies. So they basically made like military-style ranks, and it's a kid's series, more or less. So it's like Slenderman's continuation. He has a mansion. There's a lot of weird sexual stuff that happens with Slenderman now. He's a big fan fiction thing. People really like to have sex with Slenderman in their mind, as well as Jeff the Killer, and I found a lot of really weird stuff.
Oh, man.
They are seen to do such important tasks, such as, again, from the wiki, quote, such as creating and manipulating objects, destroying and leaving evidence, creating videos and responding on Twitter, and I influencing victims as needed. And this was what the proxies of Slenderman would do. So Slenderman had his own staff that would take care of his Twitter, which is nice. And he doesn't pay them, so that has to be against child laws.
It's like the Louis C.K. joke. It's like, what do you do? Oh, I have a summer job. I'm an intern for the Slenderman Twitter.
Yeah, and he jerks off in front of his proxies. There it is. On May 31st, 2014, less than 5 years after the birth of Slenderman, again, it seems like this all happened over the course of 20 years. It was 4.5 years from inception to stab. Mm-hmm. Nuts. Then 12-year-olds, Anissa Ware...
Who cares?
And Morgan Geyser lured their friend Peyton Lutner into a nearby forest before stabbing her 19 times and then leaving her to die. Showing unbelievable strength and pure will to survive, Peyton managed to drag herself to a nearby road by being discovered by a passing cyclist and ultimately surviving. Thank God. Like, all jokes aside, this is, like, brutal.
Yeah.
Once caught, the two girls claimed Slenderman to be the motive of the killing, stating committing a murder was the only way that they would become proxies of Slenderman. And they fully believed that once Peyton was dead, they believed that Slenderman would show them his mansion. They would walk into his mansion and from that on live internally as his proxy. That's what they believed.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah.
That's so dangerous.
It is and it's not. Needless to say, everyone in the story is obviously sad and unfortunate. Morgan and Anissa were both deemed to be very mentally ill, with Slenderman not even being close to the only fictional character that they weaved into their delusions. She said that she saw Lord Voldemort as a kid. When she was 3, she was saying that she was seeing people in her room. So this is something that goes back to when she was a kid. This is not Slenderman's fault. This is mental illness being unchecked.
It could have been anyone.
Yeah, from what I know of, the parents did what they needed to do, just not realizing how bad it was. So I don't really know who's to blame here. Like I said, we don't really want to get crazy into it, but these are all children, so just, I don't know. It's fucked up. I don't know. Peyton and her parents will have to deal with the trauma associated with all of it, and for whatever reason, the only thing that gets discussed is this story having a connection to Slenderman, which is really sad. Just like Columbine being associated with Doom and Marilyn Manson, it's all bullshit, and it's all just to sell stories. It's an entire documentary was made about the stabbings, and it's branded as a Slenderman documentary.
Yeah.
It's not about that at all.
Yeah.
And it's really fucked up because if let's just say, imagine fucking Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City bombings, right? He did that, and then because he had a Pokemon sticker on a gun, they were like, oh, Pokemon did this. And then now there's a tirade about Pokemon.
And he would be called the Pokemon Killer.
Yeah, it's really fucked up, and it's stupid, and it's just another way to weave, something that people don't understand into. It's basically Slenderman in real life. It's this thing that no one gets, so they just put whatever they want on them to scare parents into not letting their children go online.
And it's not even like we're saying, oh, how could you ruin Slenderman's good name?
Perfect way to put it. They didn't ruin anything. It's not like it was fucking Mickey Mouse and they killed someone as sacrifice for Mickey Mouse. It's Slenderman. It's one of the most overbloated characters ever to exist in terms of shitty stories about them. So, in conclusion, the influence of creepypasta, and more specifically Slenderman, can be seen all over the internet horror scene. From YouTube's again growing analog horror to the surprisingly large no-sleep community, creepypastas will continue and grow, possibly even allowing for a more unlikely return to peak Slenderman. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a resurgence.
I hope we get a different monster.
There are a lot of different monsters. The Rake, which is a really famous internet monster. It's been around for 25 years, and that has continued to become kind of still underground and creepy.
You remember Siren Head?
Siren Head is another one.
Yeah, that was a really silly one.
Siren Head is just a giant thing with a siren that's going... just walking through like a city, and people are like, don't let it see you because it might scream a siren at you. The influence of the tall man is obvious, from the Enderman in Minecraft to the terrible movie that I really wanted to see and then fell asleep 15 minutes in. Slenderman will go down as a titan of modern horror if he hasn't already. And with that concludes episode 28, Creepypasta and the Slenderman and the Weird World of Creepypasta.
There it is.
And that is that's Slendy. Slenderman has been covered.
And now Slenderman is so mainstream to the point that like everybody knows who Slenderman is. A household figure like Bigfoot. It's just a monster that everybody kind of knows. There's dolls you could buy at GameStop. There's there's the game. There's a movie, like an official Hollywood
didn't even get
film.
into the games. The games like Slender and the 8 Pages. There's really nothing to say other than it was just a game of exactly what we said. You have to find 8 pages, and each time it gets harder, and he stalks you. It came out at the exact same time that YouTube Let's Plays were blowing up.
Yeah,
and along with Minecraft, Slender the 8 Pages was just another way that Slender grew in a really weird, unforeseen way.
I remember when that game came out, it was kind of a big deal. It's like Slenderman has a game now.
Yeah, it was one of the first games like that.
Yeah.
It was the first game like that, actually, thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I think Amnesia: The Dark Descent was the only game that was like really scaring people to the point that they were doing Let's Plays and people were like, I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was just Slenderman.
Damn.
I thought that game was where Slenderman came from. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Really? That's
a lot of
interesting.
people think that's where Slenderman came from. And again, that adds to the whole legend of it, is that when you lose the something awful context, it could be real. People are saying it dates back to Germany, 1600s. It's all these legends. Like it becomes just a thing that you hear, again, like Bigfoot. Or even Mothman. Mothman is like weirdly having like a fucking resurgence right now.
100%.
Yeah, I'm...
Ooh, I almost spilled that water.
Put that over there. Mothman is, I credit me. I love him. All hail John Keel. Oh, all hail John Keel!
Every new thing that comes out with Slenderman that pushes him more into the public lexicon, people then associate that with the origin. So it was like Marble Hornets, then it was the game, then it was the stabbing, then it was the movie, and then it was Minecraft. Like people associate Enderman. Yeah, shit.
Which is fine. Marble Hornets, I would argue, technically was the start of a lot of things. Like, the Something Awful would have just faded into nothing if that didn't happen, realistically.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it would be more of a thing now. You know, imagine if Slenderman didn't blow up. No one knew who he was except this little forum, and we just discovered it like, oh shit, remember this thing? And it would be even scarier now, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that it's a great story of development and stuff like that with almost zero substance to actually dive into, which is really interesting. I wrote an episode that's longer than most episodes about basically a nothing.
Yeah, I think that Slenderman is an interesting design, and I think if that night at Josh's house, if that sleepover didn't happen, I wouldn't give a single flying fuck about any of this.
And I think that's how he will fall under a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that if they didn't find it when they were kids, they couldn't give a fuck. Again, we are pushing 30. And for some reason, even after talking about how stupid it is, I still have a love for it. I really do. Like, there's something so cool about it.
Yeah, because of course it's not real. And I think maybe there's like 2 people in the planet that believe it actually, that the Slenderman...
You'd be surprised.
Well, let me rephrase. But not including children, like... people over 20 that think Slenderman is a real thing.
That's fair.
That there was never a Something Awful thread, that it was a legend, whatever. But I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. It's a really easy thing for mentally ill people to attach to because it's just this thing haunting them, which is basically their mental illness anyway.
And it's such a simple design that is very much, it's easy to be scared of it because it's so simple. It's just
the
like
vagueness.
Vagueness.
Yeah. The faceless horror that has become the face of horror.
That was good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. This is scary. This spooky story we're going to read definitely didn't happen already. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. You're welcome.
This camera. Tell everybody what you're doing. I'm going with the Sean Evans thing.
The tub when I take a bath.
Thank you so much, Matthew Provenzano.
You're
it's
welcome.
gonna come underneath your face, just like me. And and then my name is Andrew Venor. Let that dude's thing. Okay, cool. This is the I'm Not Crazy podcast. Make sure you check it out. Yep. I mean, you watch the whole thing. Rate it, review it, subscribe to it, click on it, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell anyone who could watch it with eyes and has a brain to comprehend what I'm saying and intake the information and learn. Goodbye.
I feel like I just got whiplash.
Yeah, well, we're going to read the Creepypasta now. You ready?
Yeah, we didn't do that.
We definitely didn't. Ready?
Yeah, we're going to read it now. 1, 2, 3.
I've seen him. It started as dreams, but now he's showing up in random areas at random times. And even though he's terrifying, I feel a sense of calm when he's around. The first time I saw him was at my boyfriend's house in his room. I woke up from a nightmare and sat up, and there he was in the corner, just watching, stalking. He couldn't believe it. Oh, sorry. He could believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it was him, and shrugged it off as being tired and still shaken from the nightmare I had just had. The second time, I was again at my boyfriend's, and we were in his room. We were in bed, he was sleeping, and I got up to use the bathroom. I looked out his window, and there he was again, unusually tall, extremely thin, wearing that stupid black suit, just staring. I kept looking away and looking back, but he was still there. I quickly ran to the bathroom and ran back to the bed, avoiding the window. The third time was 2 weekends ago. Once again at my boyfriend's, there he was again. Maybe it's just a boyfriend. Same spot as the first time. I couldn't believe it. And I began to feel that overwhelming feeling of calmness. He never showed his faceless face at my house. Only my boyfriend's. But I know he's near when I'm home, because my cable glitches, my TV signal goes in and out, my phone acts strange. I know that's him showing himself in a different way. I know I'm not helping myself, because my fascination continues to grow, and I keep researching. The thought of Slenderman is terrifying, but whenever I see him, I'm calm, and just amazed at his presence. He stares, I stare, we stare. That's not what it says. He stares, I stare, I feel okay. I don't know what it is, but when he's near, I'm not scared. Good night, everyone.
You should have ended it with, I'm not crazy.
Okay, I'll yeah. But when he's near, I'm Not Crazy Podcast, episode 28.
Starring Andrew Venor.
Starring Andrew Venor. Yeah. All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Enjoy.